Om Gyanatimidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurum Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayan Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakambitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavanishware Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satvala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidvanta Ditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita Paramananda Pataya Prema Varsyaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastute Madeka Sango Matsangin Madguro Mahadana Mam Nishtara Kamadbhagya Madananda Namastute Asadu Sadhu Tadayin Ati Nichochatakara Hanamuncha Kadachimam Premna Ritkanta Yospura. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and in my voice with pure love. Rantara Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our lesson. Today we are beginning with second chapter. Nonetheless, I would like to do a little recap from yesterday, some points that stood out. You can just write in the chat box 1 or 2 points. Maybe you want to unmute yourself and share something. Just spend a few minutes kind of doing a little revision of yesterday's lesson.
Okay. Prabhuji, can I start?
Sure.
So I learned about these two important considerations for hearing Shastras. One was about the external environment, which was Naimisha Kshetra, the external environment, and the other one was internal mood, which was Swargaya Lokaya, which was basically talking about how we should be always be anxious to do good to people in general.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. Someone else? Shama Priya, Somya, Devidasi.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So first we were saying that instead of reading, but Shravana and Kirtana, that is hearing and explaining, is more important than reading because it's progressive to spiritual life.
You remember why?
Because while reading, we have the risk of misunderstanding. We don't have the correct guidance.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone else? You can write on the chat box also, so everybody gets the opportunity to contribute something. Everyone should actually write at least 1 point.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead. Ramananda Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. Like I got 1 point from yesterday's class. Like as you told that, like how can we know that someone is serious in bhakti in his spiritual life or not? How can we identify seriousness in bhakti? So you told like he should be very much interested in subject matter, and he should know when he knows that the purpose of life, then he never disturbs from the duality of mind. He is firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. Then we can check that he is like serious in bhakti.
Thank you, Ramananda Prabhu. Rupa Goswami, were you here yesterday?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam. Sorry, yesterday I could not attend. Some very extreme cold and cough, fever.
Okay.
Today
Someone else?
also,
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can I, Prabhu?
Shinarayan Prabhu, yeah.
The first was like among the 6 questions from the 9th sloka. Like, what is the ultimate shreyas? Like, what is the good for people? That is the best way, like the Krishna Prema. And then we went into the different state of affairs of Kali, the Manda, Sumanda, Upadrata,
Okay.
that 4 meanings.
Okay, nice. I'll read a few from the chat box. Let's see. We're only instrument of the previous acharya. Qualification of speakers. Okay, putting across questions to elicit clear meaning. 2 qualifications of hearing, submissive and obedience for listening. Morning is the best time for spiritual activities. Eagerness is the first qualification for hearing. The qualifications of a teacher: hearing, internalizing, realization, and explaining. The process followed by Sutta Goswami. Nice. This is actually given in Lila Manohar. This is actually given in the Vedas as how the process of learning becomes complete. We hear, we internalize, we put into practice, and we explain. Here, take it to heart, put it into practice, give it to others. The process is complete. 6th question by the sages: to be submissive means to be genuinely interested and open to receive, even if it challenges his present reality. Yes. Qualification of hearer, obedience and submission. So that point of obedience and submission came across. Very important. Thank you. 6 questions. What is Shreya? What is the essence of Shastra? 3 questions regarding Krishna's pastimes and avatars, and where Dharma took shelter since Krishna left. Okay. Prema Bhakti is the ultimate goal. Thank you. Nice. Okay, so now we're beginning with chapter 2. As I mentioned, chapter 2 is very important. It's entitled Divinity and Divine Service. And basically in this chapter, Prabhupada lecture, he gave many lectures. I believe he like 70 lectures. Is the section of the Bhagavatam he lectured the most. And I advise you to go through these lectures and read them or listen to them if you can. So let's see what is in this. We'll do a little overview of the chapter and then so the chapter open. Sorry,
Before you start,
yeah.
can I just ask you a very quick question, Prabhuji?
Sure.
Prabhuji, the 6 questions that we discussed yesterday, the last slide, was actually that you talked about was about the from the Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and the way the 6 questions were explained were a little bit slightly different to the 6 questions you had. So
Yeah.
from an exam point of view, if we approach from a Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur point of view, would that be okay, or do we have to?
Yeah, it is fine.
How is right?
It is fine.
Good. Thank you. Haribol.
It is fine. Just as a general rule, okay, for everybody. When we study this scripture, when we study the Bhagavatam, we go by Prabhupada, okay? And before we enter into analyzing any of the, commentaries of the acharyas, first of all, Prabhupada has included everything in his commentaries anyway. If you see, Prabhupada has, he used like 11 commentaries, and he put the essence along with his own flavor, adjusting it for our understanding and making it available. So it is very important that whatever we see, or even if we study some other commentary by previous acharyas or something, we should always look at it through the lens of Prabhupada's teachings. We don't look at Prabhupada's teachings through the lens of the acharyas. Okay, because Prabhupada is our immediate acharya, he's our savior, he's our direct connection with the parampara. Okay, so that's the thing. Now, in the question that you're mentioning, when Prabhupada, this analysis of the questions is not like given specifically. This is coming from our study guides, really, Prabhupada gave his purport, and we get the Bhagavatam through Prabhupada, but no, it's not that Prabhupada specify if question 4 and 5 refer to this or refer to that. Prabhupada kind of combine everything there in his purports. So basically, we know them both, so we can use both. Generally, we are not following that one of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur so much as we're following the one by Jiva Goswami. But it just goes to show that things can be interpreted in many different ways, and it doesn't contradict. The main thing is that it doesn't contradict. Okay, is that clear? Okay, so today now Sutta Goswami has been asked by the sages, and he begins the chapter by offering his respects to his spiritual masters Sukadev and Vyasadeva, and appreciates the sages' inquiries. So the theme of Vaishnava etiquette continues. Okay, we heard about the qualifications of the hearer, and we have heard about the qualifications of the speaker. And now we're going to see it in action also. We saw it in action as well with the sages, Shonaka Rishi, sages headed by Shonaka, how they offer respects to Sutta Goswami. But now Sutta Goswami, in turn, he is offering respects to his guru and to Vyasadeva. And he is also offering respects and appreciating the questions by the sages. So we see the sweetness, the sweetness of the exchanges here between hearer and speaker. So it's 5 verses where Sutta Goswami perfectly exemplifies the proper etiquette. And then immediately after that, he just begins to answer the questions by the sages. Questions 1 and 2 are, they are answered in verse 6 and 7, and then 8, 9, 10, 11, they're just they are like elaborating or, expanding on the answers. And then he goes on to explain how bhakti works. Now, the answer to the question is what is the topmost, what is the ultimate goal? Shreyas, tatra sajusmam, punsam ekantata shreyas. What is the absolute and ultimate good for the good of all living beings? So that's actually bhakti, paradharma. What is the paradharma? Is bhakti. And And what is the essence of all the scriptures? That yes, that one must engage in bhakti. So now verses 12 to 22, he explained how the process of bhakti works. And then 23 to 34, he's going to establish also how Krishna is the supreme goal of life. And he's going to give a very brief description about the Purusha avatars and how they create and maintain. And in this way, questions 3 and 4 are answered. So in terms to Yamasta Prabhu, you see the question here, you see, we're referring to as the Purusha avatars there, right?
Yes.
That's chapter 2. As I mentioned before, the verses are very beautiful, and I think that particular emphasis should be given to this chapter by all the devotees. Read it, recite it, learn it, and you'll find a lot of inspiration and a lot of clarity in your own performance of bhakti, by learning these verses to heart. And if you want to preach Krishna consciousness, if learning this chapter, it gives you the weapons to preach. So that's what I was saying. The Prabhupada lectures so much on these verses because, I mean, it's like the whole philosophy, the whole process is being described here in this chapter. Okay, so let's get on with it. Let's move to. Okay, so we are gonna stop here, and then we're gonna go to the Bhagavatam. I'm gonna share the screen with the Bhagavatam today. That make it easier, I think. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vyasa Uvacha. Itisham Prashna Samsrito Vipranam Romaharsani Pati Puja Vachastesham Pravaktum Upachakrame. Ugrashrava Sutta Goswami, the son of Romaharshana, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the sages, of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. So basically here I can read from the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, is relevant. He's saying in the second chapter there is a description of 3 items: the process, avideya, bhakti; the goal, prayojana, prema; and the object of worship, the Supreme Lord Bhagavan Krishna. Now, again, coming back to the culture, you see, Ugrashrava, first of all, it is some prashna samsrito, okay? He's, the questions are being addressed here as perfect questions. And he is satisfied. Remember before in the previous chapter, we said that one is uplifted by both hearing and by speaking them. So he's taking great relish in hearing the questions. And pratipuja. Now, he's basically returning the same respect, the same love that he's been given by the sages. He's now returning to them. Pratipuja, and he attempted to reply. Okay. So now, and here is the first point of etiquette. Before he's going to speak, what does he do? He's going to offer his obeisances to his own spiritual master. And this brings us to the point that we were describing yesterday about how we are postmans, we're instruments. And whenever we preach, whenever we act as a messenger of this transcendental knowledge, we always offer respect to our superiors. We begin by that. Because it's not our knowledge, it's coming through them. And we want to invoke their blessings. We want to become a transparent via medium of this wisdom. And that comes through submission, and that comes through obedience and through respect to our superiors. So Sonaka Rishi, he has offered respects to Sutta Goswami, and in turn, Sutta Goswami now is offering his respects to Sukadeva Goswami. So it goes up. Even the respects that Sutta Goswami received, now he's passing it up to his guru. So even when, in the case that we may be given some respect in our preaching activities, we should understand that the respect is coming through us to the parampara. It's coming, basically the respect is coming to who we are representing. So the proper etiquette is always to offer respects. Sutta uvacha yam pravajantam anupetam apeta krityam dvaipayano virahakatara ayuhava putreti tam mayatayo tarabu binedus tam sarva bhuta hridayam munimanatosmi. Srila Sutta Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto that great sage, Shukadeva Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyas, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher caste, his father Vyasadeva, feeling separation from him, cried out, 'O my son, indeed only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation echoed in response to the bereaved father.'" So as you know, the history goes that Sukadeva Goswami was in the womb of his mother for like 12 years. And he was already self-realized while in the womb. He didn't want to come out because he was afraid of falling into Maya. And then Vyasadeva had to go all the way to Dwarka to get Krishna to come, to persuade Shukadeva to come out of the womb. Because, you know, Vyasadeva was in the household life, and Shukadeva wasn't kind of trusting Shukadeva when Shukadeva said there was no problem to come out. I said, well, you are caught, you know, in the wall of duality. So Vyasadeva, you know, Krishna came and assured him that he will not be affected by Maya. But as soon as he came out, he immediately left for the forest. He didn't waste a moment, and he renounced the world. And it's explained how Vyasadeva, feeling separation, he actually was crying out, "Oh my son, oh my son." And then only the trees, which were absorbed in the same feelings, they echoed, you know. So some of the acharyas have commented that, you know, the trees were also having the same kind of affection for Shukadeva Goswami, being a self-realized soul. I mean, different explanations are given. But he was Shukadeva Goswami. And again, we were explaining the glory of the Srimad-Bhagavatam is that the quality, the glory of the speakers of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So we can see that, like, the speaker of the Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami, was not, you know, an ordinary soul. And this is being explained here. He already, just upon taking birth, he left. He just gave up the, you know, he gave up the world. He didn't need to go through the, you know, initiation process. You know, he was beyond the Varnashram, you know, system, beyond the rules. He just left. So Prabhupada in the purport explains the difference between Dvija, Vipra, and Brahmana. Anybody knows the difference between them? Can someone explain it? Anyone? This is one of your Purva Swadhyaya questions, so I was thinking that you will know.
Even sloka is there.
Mm-hmm.
The Shastras, like Ved Pathit Bhave Vipra and Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. And Duja is a twice born.
So can you explain the difference between these?
Yes, means one who knows the Shastras.
Mhm.
He is called as Vipra, like scholarly person, scholar.
Okay.
And one who knows Brahman, absolute truth, is called Brahmana.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Prabhupada explains in the purport, right? That it says that when one receives second initiation, he becomes a Dvija. After studying the Vedas, he becomes a Vipra. And when one actually comes to the realization of the Vedas, of the Vedic teachings, he becomes a Brahmana. Okay. Just 1 second. I somehow got the it's time to sort out my PowerPoint. Just give me a second, because I got the wrong one. Oh, that's why. Okay, so we're going to second verse. Third verse. Yasanubhavam akila shruti saramikam madhyatmadipam atitirshatam tamontam samsarinam karunayaha puranaguhyam tam vyasasunum upayami gurumuninam. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Shuka, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge after having personally assimilated it by experience. So the story, as I said, goes that Sukadeva Goswami left for the forest. Vyasadeva was disappointed because Vyasadeva wanted to teach the Srimad-Bhagavatam to his son. So what he did is he sent some of his disciples to the forest, and they were reciting verses from the Bhagavatam. And when Sukadeva Goswami heard the verses, even though he was already situated on the platform of self-realization, he became attracted, and he came back to the ashram to learn the Srimad Bhagavatam from his father. And then, as is mentioned here, that he spoke this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the cream of the Vedic knowledge, and is the most confidential supplement. Most confidential means that this is like advanced. This is like this is guhyam. It means like it's an advanced type of literature. Now, we'll hear later on, and we referred to that initially, that Vyasadeva had actually been given the task to edit the Vedas, to put everything in writing. He had compiled millions of verses, literally, like from the Puranas, Mahabharata. He wrote the Vedanta Sutra as the essence of the Vedic literatures. But Vedanta Sutra is very condensed. It's very, as it says, it's in sutras. So these sutras, they need interpretation, because a sutra means it's like a statement which can be interpreted in many different ways. So there was a necessity for a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, and that was the Srimad-Bhagavatam. He himself, Vyasadeva, after editing the Vedas, writing the Puranas, Mahabharata, he wrote this Vedanta Sutra, which was the essence of the teachings of the Vedas, and that in itself required a commentary, and that commentary is the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which Sukadeva Goswami learned and assimilated by experience, he says here, assimilated. So, so how the Srimad-Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on the Srimad-Bhagavatam, we can see just even in the first verse. Let's see. Let's read from the verse. Can someone read? Anyone would like to read? Like maybe Shama Priya Mate, would you like to read?
Yes, bro. In this prayer, Sri Sutta Goswami practically summarizes the complete introduction of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the natural supplementary commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. The Vedanta Sutras, or the Brahma Sutras, were compiled by Vyasadeva with a view to presenting just the cream of Vedic knowledge. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the screen. Srila Sukadeva Goswami was a thoroughly realized master of the Vedanta Sutra, and consequently, he also personally realized the commentary, Srimad-Bhagavatam.
And as we will see later on in this first canto, how, well, it's actually in the second canto, at the beginning of the second canto, how Sukadeva Goswami, when he appeared at the bank of the river Ganges, and he was being chased by children who were mocking and kind of trying to, make jokes out of him. But as soon as he arrived in the assembly, there were sages from all over the world. They had assembled there to see the departure of Parikshit Maharaj, and all the sages, they immediately stood up as soon as they saw him. And the sages were kind of arguing. They were like debating about what was the answer to, what was the actual purpose, what was the ultimate duty? Because the question that Parikshit Maharaj had raised was, what is the duty of a man, and what is the duty of a man, particularly when he's going to leave this world? And as we have been discussing, the Bhagavatam is a series of questions and answers, and you can see the questions are always centered around the same theme. What is my duty? And I find that this is a very important question for us also, in our life, in different situations, at different stages, whenever we find ourselves in some troublesome situation, we can, this is the question that we should ask ourselves. What is my duty? What is my duty? That was Parikshit Maharaj, So anyway, as Sukadeva Goswami arrived, all the sages immediately they became quiet, and they could see by his physiognomy that he was, a self-realized soul. He was a Paramahamsa, and they gave him the seat. They gave him the Vyasasan, and they all sat down to listen from him. And basically, as I believe I mentioned it before, Narada Muni was there, Vyasadeva was there. They were there, and when they heard the Srimad-Bhagavatam from the lips of Sukadeva Goswami, it was so relishable, it was so nice that actually they felt like they have never heard it before. That's why I say Sukamukan Amrita Draba Samyutam. That the Bhagavad, this fruit, Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. This fruit, which is already sweet, is become even more sweet by the touch of the lips of Sukadeva Goswami, by the touch of his own realization. And this is the proof of the when someone has actually realized the scriptures. Even the same thing. I remember Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu. He was saying that even if we just read the book, okay, say you read the purports, or you read the Bhagavatam, you are already giving a purport to the Bhagavatam by your sound vibration. Do I explain myself? Is it clear? Does it make sense? That, our sound vibration carries with it already some meaning, some potency, either little potency, no potency, or potency. The speaker, the vibration of the speaker. So, even just by reading, even if we just read, even just repeat the message, that our realization, and that's why Prabhupada wrote that, milk touched by the lips of serpent, it has poisonous effect. So if someone, comments or read on Srimad-Bhagavatam and is not a devotee, then the message is contaminated by what? What is the poison? By the consciousness. Okay. So now how this Srimad-Bhagavatam is the natural commentary to the Vedanta Sutra. So the Vedanta Sutra begins with the aphorism, with the sutra, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now, therefore, let's inquire about Brahman. Okay? Sutra 2 is Jammadhyasya. Sounds familiar? This is the beginning of Srimad-Bhagavatam too. Brahman is the source of creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the universe. Brahma, Sutra number 3, Shastra Yonitvat. He is the origin, the yoni of the Vedas. Sutra 4, Tatu Samam Vayat. For he is the knower of everything, Samam Vayat. Now, can you find in what we have studied in the Bhagavatam already, the correlations? Is this being already described in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Let's see if someone can be erudite enough to find the correlation. Where do we find the same meanings already? Let's see. Bhagavatam comes as a natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Okay? So what are the correlations? Anyone? It's actually it's not that complicated.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay.
I think the very first verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam answers all these, relates to all these sutras.
Yeah.
When the inquiry of the sages represents how everyone wants to inquire about the Brahman.
Just find the first verse. Just according to the first verse of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, you find the correlation with this?
I found the correlation with the rest of the sutras, 2, 3, 4, but with first I am not sure.
Okay, 2, 3, 4. 2 is obvious, right? Jammadhyasya yataha is literal. Sastra Yonitva.
Yeah, when Vyasadeva is praying to Krishna, saying that you are the absolute truth and directly and indirectly you are the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction, and indirectly and directly, you represents everything. So Krishna is also represented by Vedas, or Vedas represents. Represents.
Yeah, it's not accurate, but it's warm enough. You are on the right track. Thank you for that. That was a good attempt. Okay, let's see. Sutra 1. Atato Brahma. Now it's time to inquire about the absolute truth. And Vyasadeva begin. Now let us meditate on the absolute truth. Satyam Param Dhimahi. Okay, Sutra 2. Jammadhyasya yataha. Yeah, Jammadhyasya yataha. Krishna is the source. Now, Shastra Yonitvat. The Lord is the source of the Vedas. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye. In the very beginning, the Lord imparted the Vedic knowledge to the heart of Brahma. Right? You remember first verse? And the last one, Tatu Samam Vayat, for he alone possesses absolute knowledge. He is Abhignat. You remember? He's fully omniscient. So that's the correlation. We see just the first verse already is explaining, is talking about, these first 4 sutras of the Vedanta Sutra, which are very important. Now, the essence of the Vedanta Sutra is the first chapter, which deals with Sambandha and is summarized in those 4 sutras we have seen. The second chapter points out to the imperfect logic of other philosophical schools besides Vedanta, and is explained by the words Muhyanti Yatsuraya. You remember what does it mean, Muhyanti Yatsuraya, in the first verse? By him, even great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, right? Now, the third chapter describes Avideya, the sadhana, the practice, and is explained by the word Dhimahi, Satyam Param Dhimahi. And the fourth chapter of the Vedanta Sutra deals with the Prayojana, which is explained by the words Satyam Param. So this is, you don't need to memorize this. I'm just giving you this as a, additional knowledge on the first verse of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and to help you see how the Srimad-Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Okay. So now let's go into the next verse, text number 4. Will someone like to read text number 4? Anyone?
Can I read, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Just the translation, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, well, as you
Before-
wish. It's actually a very nice verse. Read the Sanskrit too. It's very nice.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
So Vyasadeva is continuing, Sukadeva Goswami continues here to offer obeisances. Again, why we offer obeisances? Because we need the blessings of our superiors. We cannot, this is in Bhakti, in devotional service, we're never relying on our own strength from achieving anything. We always seek the blessings. So Narayanam, he's offering his obeisances to the Lord. Namaskita nananchaiva narotamam. He's offering his obeisances to the twin incarnation, Narayan Rishi. Actually, it's explained this is the deity of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, because when Vyasadeva compiled the Srimad-Bhagavatam, he did it at Badarikashrama, where the presiding deities are Narayan Rishi. He's offered obeisances to the goddess of learning, and he's offering obeisances to Vyasadeva, the author. So this is an example that Prabhupada also followed. We, generally at the beginning of the classes, we always recite this verse. And this is, because yesterday, I think, Mataji, who was Yama Bhakti, maybe, I don't remember who he was, talking about that we may come and we may bring our egos. And so we when we are going to give a class or something, but when we recite these prayers at the beginning of the class to remove all that. Actually, when we're talking about invoking auspiciousness, this Mangala Charana, it means to remove the obstacles. Auspiciousness means to remove the obstacles. We want things to flow nicely. And in order to flow nicely, we need that. We need those blessings. We need the obstacles of our ego, our, whatever may stand in the way of us representing this message. It can be removed. And in fact, a lot of the time we see the devotees that, particularly I've seen this in India a lot, that they come to the sadhus and please give me blessings, please give me blessings. But actually, blessings is not just that you just ask for them. It's no harm in asking for them, but you got to invoke the blessings also. And we invoke the blessings by our, behavior, by our obedience, by our submission. You see, sometimes there are devotees that you think of them, and when you think of them, the heart kind of softens. You feel like you have a natural affection for them, isn't it? I'm not talking about senior Vaishnava, I'm just talking about general devotees. When we have that disposition, we're giving them our blessings. They have got our blessings. We and we want to be like that. We want to treat other devotees in such a way that when they think of us, they think also positively. And our path in devotional service may be clear by their blessings. So he expresses his obeisances to the goddess of learning and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Okay. Next text. Text 5. Munaya sadhupristo harm Bhavabdi Lokamandalam. Lokamangalam Yatkrita Krishna Samprasno Yenatmasu Prasidati. O sages, having justly questioned by you, your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are completely capable of satisfying the self. Very important verse. Very important verse. Now, Sutta Goswami is addressing and is expressing that these questions are Lokamangalam. Yatkrita, and why they were Lokamangalam, why they are auspicious for the whole world. Yatkrita Krishna Samprashno, because they relate to Krishna. And we were talking about it yesterday, and this is the message of the Bhagavatam, that how we are going to curtail, how are we going to purify the atmosphere in the age of Kali, how we're going to cleanse our hearts. It comes by hearing about Krishna, through hearing the transcendental message of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So the point being made here is that whenever topics about the Lord are being described, that brings auspiciousness to the world. So whenever questions about Krishna are asked, he's very grateful for that. And basically, when we engage in this activity, a symptom of righteousness, a symptom of doing the right thing, is that we become satisfied. Therefore, Yenatmasu Prasidati. And it's not just a little satisfied, but very satisfied, completely, suprasidati. So it's a beautiful purport, and where Prabhupada is talking about how the whole world is engaged in questions and answers. And if you, particularly now, in the age of internet, we are overloaded with information. Overloaded. I mean, it's just beyond that. In one sense, it's good. In one sense, it's good, but in another sense, it's good because it gives us facility for actually spreading the message of Krishna consciousness to every town and village through the internet. But the point is that are people becoming more satisfied now because of this? Not really. So Prabhupada is making a proposal that if we change the topic of our discussion, if we change the topic of our questions and answers, then everybody will become satisfied. People, and this is going to be described more and more, that the dealings amongst people, it will change when we talk about Krishna. And I remember when I first came in touch with ISKCON, with my Varman Pradharshaka Guru, I remember all of a sudden we were engaging in these very deep conversations, and I was just thinking, I was always philosophically inclined, and I like this kind of, books on explaining about the nature of reality and things like this. But just by coming in touch with Prabhupada's books, the topic of the conversation, it was kind of upgraded, within weeks, within days, actually. And I was thinking, this is amazing, these books, how they have, changed the focus of my conversations with my friend. And that's the power of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. He's talking, what is he talking? He's talking about the absolute truth. So let's read a little bit from the purport. I think I have it here. Okay. Someone would like to read? Anyone?
Because the Srimad Bhagavatam deals with the questions and answers that are related to Krishna, we can derive the highest satisfaction only by reading and hearing this transcendental literature.
Okay, so
One
just
should learn.
Stop there for a second. It says sometimes we read this and I just kind of, we can derive the highest satisfaction only by reading and hearing this transcendental literature. So how important it is to mold our lives in a way that we can do this. And all glories to your effort to join this Bhakti-vaibhava course, because this gives you that platform. You are now more or less forced. You have to read. because you have a class to attend, you have a test to do. So it kind of forces you. And it's a good thing, because otherwise days go by, and then, we don't read anything. But the main objective of a course like this is that we develop the habit of reading on a regular basis, of keeping in touch with this transcendental literature. Madeka Bandhu Mat Sangim Mat Guru Mamahagana. He's saying, you're my friend, you're my guru, you're my master. Don't ever leave me. That's the prayer we recite every day by Sanatana Goswami to the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And that's our goal, okay? That's more important than anything else. More important than your result in the test is to develop, cultivating that relationship with the Srimad-Bhagavatam.
Cool. One should learn the Srimad-Bhagavatam and make an all around solutions to all problems pertaining to social, political, or religious matters.
Go ahead. Finish.
Srimad-Bhagavatam and Krishna are the sum of total of all things. Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 5, purport.
Okay, so now Sutta Goswami is going to be in with, okay, well, this is actually from a lecture. Okay, so therefore, this Krishna Samprashna, if simply people become inquisitive, what is Krishna? And you simply try to answer them. We have got so many books now, then the whole world will be peaceful. Janatma Suprasidati. So try to impress the whole Western world about Krishna Samprashna. Then they'll be happy. That is our mission. So Prabhupada actually one time said that, distributing my books will keep my devotees happy. But reading them will keep them. Yeah, distributing my books will keep them happy, but reading them will keep them. In other words, why we read Prabhupada's books? It's a necessity. It's a necessity. It's not like an option. We need it. And when we read Prabhupada's books, I mean, anyone, what can you have to go extensive, but what is your experience of reading Prabhupada's books? What happens? You can type on the chat box. Let's do a little sharing here.
Changes life.
How?
It's more practical, isn't it? I mean, I got given Srila Prabhupada's book when I was 20, when I was very young, in my 20s. And then after that, a person like me who wouldn't have come to any religious thing, nothing to do with it. So it just changes lives, and you become more pure in your approach.
Why change your life? Why change? What caused the change?
What causes a change? The change, it's an eye-opener. It basically makes you realize that the dealings in your day-to-day life can be clean, and the values can be followed, and still you can carry on with your life and your business. So prior to this, there would be no boundaries. At least by coming in contact with Srila Prabhupada, you understand the boundaries are good for you. And those boundaries are really realistic and useful for your progress as a human being. I'm not even going into spiritual level, I'm talking about just becoming a normal human being. I actually talked to one of a colleague of mine who works with me. We were talking about this. He is now 23 years of age. So I said, I started reading Bhagavad Gita when I was 22, 23. And I said to him, like, if I wouldn't have done that, I would be a different person today. And just thinking about the basic things that you do in life, like, in my situation that I'm in, I deal with quite a bit of money, on a daily basis. I'm a chartered accountant. So I know how people behave with a bit of money, and how they act, how they react. And if Srila Prabhupada wouldn't have come, then I would have been one of them, because there would not be any boundaries. There would not be any difference between good or bad, because everything is blur. So I think it's more practical than anything else.
Nice, thank you very much. Yeah, it is true actually that I like the point about you making about the boundaries, that there was no standards, right? Before coming in touch with Prabhupada's books, we really didn't have good standards. We were confused, the standards that were coming. I remember watching the news. I stopped watching the news even before being at the body, because I couldn't make out who was right, who was wrong. It was also, like you said, blur, and I was right to this day. I mean, it's all like so confusing. So we get an understanding about what's right, what's wrong, how to move on in life. I'm reading a lot of the comments here, and the one point is that it's very satisfying. We want to come to the point of reading the Srimad-Bhagavatam because we like it, we relish. I believe His Holiness Radha Govinda Swami one time, I don't, Radha Govinda Swami, he's one of our ISKCON gurus, but he is particularly, reputed for his Bhagavad Gita. He's deeply absorbed in Srimad-Bhagavatam. I don't remember who it was who asked him, maybe it was Buriyam Prabhu, but he said, how do you prepare for your classes? And he said, I don't prepare, I just relish. So this is of course we need to prepare ourselves. We're not on that level yet, but the thing is that we want to we should look at the Bhagavatam as as a refuge, as a solace, a place where we can go and charge our batteries. So I'm appreciating many of the points here. He says, if I do not read Srimad-Bhagavatam one day, I feel miserable. So yeah, it's like that. We should be like this. Like it's like our nourishment. If I don't get some Krishna Katha, what is going to happen to me? I'm going to die. I need some nourishment. I think it was Jiva Goswami says that one should read Bhagavatam with the same intensity that when a lover is expecting the letter from his beloved, and it's like the anticipation that when is the letter going to come, and eventually you get the letter and you read the letter like with such kind of, intensity. It says that we should read Bhagavatam in the same way. We're so kind of eager to get that result. Okay, there was a hand up there. I don't know who it was. Whoever it was, you can speak. And if there isn't, I'll just move on. I thought I saw a hand up. No? Okay. So thank you for all the points. I got the purpose of life and Krishna. So this is going to be very much the topic of this Unit 1 and Unit 2, Introduction to the Bhagavatam, understanding the importance of hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam. Okay, so now overview of what's coming. Sudha Goswami is going to begin to answer the questions, okay? And begins, what was the first question? You remember? Tatra tatra yasa yusmam Bhagavanyam vinishchitam Pumsam ekantatasuyas tamna samsitung arhasi. Now, Sutta Goswami, please, being blessed with many years, please tell us what is the ultimate and absolute good for the living beings. Okay? So that's answered in verses 6 and 7. They both answer the same question. And sometimes the distinction is made between verse number 6 being the Prayoyana and verse number 7 being the Avideya. I'll explain that in a minute, but okay. So we have verse 6, then so by performing the topmost, and what happens again when we perform the topmost activity? Everyone will become satisfied. Okay? That's you could say the criteria to determine what is the topmost activity. And we're going to go through these verses. I'm just doing an overview, okay? Now, text 7. Now, Burini Burikarmani Shrotavyani Vibhagasa Atra Sadot Trayatsaram. He said, what is the essence of all the scripture? There are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them, there are many prescribed rules. Now, please tell us in an easily understandable way, what is the best? So what is the best? The recommendation of all the Shastras is to perform Bhakti Yoga. How is that? We'll explain it. Now, 8 to 15 explain how to only Bhakti is to be gained through the performance of work. In other words, all our activities, everything should be directed towards developing our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And then Krishna's Sutta Goswami is going to explain how Bhakti works. And this is going to be a theme that is going to be elaborated upon in Unit 2, which is a wonderful unit as well. Okay. So in response to the sage's questions 1 and 2, again, and just repetition is good, is matter of remembrance, right? So here it is in different words. 6 and 7 is the answer, pure devotion to Krishna. That's the topmost dharma, the supreme, the parodharma. In order to further substantiate this answer, Sutta explains that dharma, in this case, occupational duty, is useless if it doesn't lead to Krishna Bhakti. Dharma should be performed to evoke our divine consciousness. Dharmasanustitam pumsam visvakshena kata suyat. That, one should develop a desire to hear, a desire to become a devotee. That's the divine consciousness. Otherwise, shama eva hi kevalam. Everything is a waste of time. Now, text 9 and 10. What is the purpose of life? Purpose of life is to inquire about the absolute truth. Is to realize the absolute truth. It's not sense gratification. Text 11 prescribes the absolute truth. Okay, so now let's begin. So we go to this very, very famous verse. It's a memorization verse. I hope you all know. You probably know it by heart by now. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adokshaye ahaituki apratihata janatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation for whole humanity is that by which they can attain to loving devotional service to the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. So again, what is the answer to the what is the parodharma? What is the ultimate, the highest occupation? Is yato bhaktir adoksaye. Is bhakti for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, adoksaya, he who is beyond the perception of the senses. Now, such devotional service to give complete satisfaction to the soul, it has to be performed. There is a qualification. There is a criteria for this type of bhakti, because and we already studied in the Nectar of Devotion that there is pure devotional service. There's devotional service and there's pure devotional service, right? You remember that verse? That's the most important verse practically in the whole Bhakti Shastri course from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Anyone would like to recite it, or we can do it all together? Anya Vila
शून्यं ज्ञानकर्मादीयनामृतम्
Karmadhyanaamritam
आनुकूल्येन
Krishnanusuchilena Bhakti
A very important verse. And there Prabhupada, Rupa Goswami, he explaining, he's given the definition of pure devotional service. So, Anya Vilasita Sunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. And we remember, you remember Swarupa Lakshana and Tatastha Lakshana. You have the essential characteristics and the marginal characteristics. So, Anya Vilasita Sunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. Anukulyena Krishna Anusilanam Bhakti Uttama. So this Anukulyena Krishna Anusilanam Bhakti Uttama, this is actually, well, Krishna Bhakti Uttama is pure devotional service, but these are like, this is devotional service. But when devotional service is not covered, Anyavilasita Sunya, no other motives, not covered by jnana or karma, not covered by any other type or any other method, then becomes pure. So in the same way, in this verse, is saying ahaituki apratihata. Is that this devotional service must be without any cause. Hetu in Sanskrit means cause. So ahaituki it means without cause. In this case, it means without motive. Selfish motive. There is one motive, but what is that motive? The motive is to please the Supreme Lord. That's bhakti. Bhakti is the deep conception in the heart that I want to give Krishna pleasure. And such devotional service must be apratihata, must be also uninterrupted. Like this is again pure devotional service, like Anya Vilashita Sunyan. Anya Vilashita Sunyan also means, like with no other motive, without any interruption. Anushilanam. So that's the definition of pure devotional service. And this is a recommendation of the sages. So now, why is it that this is the parodharma? Let's open that for discussion. Why is, okay, actually, before we do that, let's just read a few more quotes, and then we can maybe go to verse 7 as well. Okay, so this is a few quotes. Please mute yourself, whoever that is. Charulata. Okay, muted. Okay, can anyone read?
Sure, Prabhuji. In Srimad-Bhagavatam 1:26, it is said, Sevan Punsa Paradharmo Yato Bhakti Adhokshaje. That religion is first class, which helps one advance his devotional service and love of God. That's all. That is the definition of a first class religion. The purpose and religion is to understand God and to learn how to love God. Any religious system, if it teaches one how to love God, is first class. Otherwise, it is useless.
So this verse is connected. You remember at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Dharma proita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satan, completely rejecting all religious activities. Now, the Bhagavatam here in this verse is establishing what is the true standard of religion. What is the true standard of religion? Is that the activities are performed for the pleasure of the Lord, without any other motive, just for Krishna's, for God's sake. I'm not doing my religion because I want to get some benefit. Not doing my religion because I want to be rightful. No, I am doing my activity to please the Lord. That's the true standard of religion. Clear? And this is our preaching. Someone else can read?
Thus, when we speak of worship, there is just selfish motive. But when we speak of devotional service, there is no motive except the desire to please the beloved. Devotional service is based on love. There should be no question of a personal motive. That's perfect Krishna consciousness, and that is recommended in Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.6 in the description of the first-class system of religious principles, Journey of Self-Discovery 5.4.
Okay, so before we go into this, so is it clear? You know, like I'm Prabhupada, we'll discuss this many times, and he will say that Krishna consciousness, it's not just a religion, it's not just a faith that changes. It's actually, we're talking about Dharma, we're talking about that which cannot be changed. Dharma is the essential, the essence of things. So just as you cannot, change, the Dharma of sugar is its sweetness, or the Dharma of water if it's liquidity, the Dharma of the soul is service to the Lord. So, and according to the definition given already in the first canto, that we are Jammadya Sejataha, we are all parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Our eternal function is to act for the pleasure of the Lord. So nothing else is going to actually give us the pleasure that we're seeking for, because that's our natural condition. And unless we are acting according to our nature, which is to serve the Lord, we always remain dissatisfied. It's like fish out of water. Okay? So there is in the purport, these are very beautiful purports. We don't have time to read them, but I'm hoping that you are reading these verses. Are you? You must, you cannot accept. Now, in the purport, Prabhupada writes this alone can lead one to perpetual solace in his service. This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. So let's open that for discussion. What does it mean? This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Does it mean that only and only by understanding this particular relationship with Krishna, that we are his eternal servants, as he fully, and we can serve him in that mood? That is the only way for we can please him. This is what I thought.
Okay, nice, good enough, nice enough. We're talking about congenial form of intimacy. Why is it that Krishna consciousness is the most congenial form of intimacy for pure bhakti? Prema Manjari.
Because every soul has a very individual and intimate relationship with the Lord. And this is gradually revealed through the practice of bhakti, when this relationship is awakened again.
Very nice. That's a very good point. There is actually one purport in the Bhagavatam where Prabhupada says that every individual jiva, they have a specific quality that is unique to him, that Krishna appreciates. Every individual. Huh? Okay, someone else. Let's see. Archana Bhakti.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. The relationship of servitude can best be done when, whether it can be done when one is in, when one understands the other person very intimately, then only one can serve. So the relationship is very, very intimate and it is bound.
You're getting close. It's kind of, I like, it's kind of warm, but I think you can come closer because in one sense, you're not answering the question because you're saying, well, it has to be very intimate, but how does it become intimate? That's the question. How does it become intimate?
When we have the knowledge, when we have the knowledge and love to serve the person, because we need to know we need to have knowledge of the person in order to serve him.
Yeah, there is a statement by Prabhupada that says that devotion lies on perfect knowledge of the Supreme. And we have to have that knowledge. Okay. But I want a little more than that. That's good. Thank you very much for that, Chana Bhaktimati. Ananda Vardhana Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I can think of is about the giving. So this relationship is about giving. Servant and served is about giving. Like it's not about the taking, and that's how I see.
Very. That's actually a key point. But you have to. Okay, I'll elaborate. With your permission, I'll elaborate a bit more on that. You see, in this world, everybody is acting with some selfish motive. Is it not? Prabhupada said that the closest you have to pure love is the love of a mother for her son, because that's the closest to unmotivated, it's just out of, like, it's very pure type of love. And those who have children, they know that, right? I didn't have children until I never knew what Prabhupada meant until I have my daughter. And then I got a glimpse, because that's, it's a very pure type of love where you just, naturally want to protect, you want to give, right? But otherwise, in the material world, everything is like mixed with some personal agenda. And whenever there is a personal agenda, that is an impediment for intimacy. Intimacy, when there is no personal agenda, when there is a selfless service attitude, then that is conducive to have a very, very intimate relationship. Right? But and that's why pure bhakti is the most congenial form. I mean, all the answers you've given, that's nice. We all have a specific relationship with Krishna. We are meant for his service. We were created for that purpose. And when that devotional service is free from any motivation, then the relationship is very pure. You see, in the material world, like wealthy people, they feel lonely a lot of the time. Why do they feel lonely? Like very rich people. Because everybody around them, they are after some money. They are not after their friendship. So they feel lonely. No one really cares for them. They just care for the money. So it's the same way when we come to Krishna with a hidden motive, that's not a perfect loving relationship. Krishna is not attracted by that. I mean, he's attracted by that in the sense that he, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that even the 4 Sukritinas, they are magnanimous souls. They are coming to me, okay? They're coming with a motive, but at least they're coming to me. I'll give them mercy, okay? But the real thing is when there is no other motive than just Krishna. I want you, Krishna. That's the real goal. And that sometimes eludes us. Sometimes we want purification. We want to become advanced. But actually, the real, Krishna, I want you. I left you. I've forgotten you. And I'm missing you. And I want to, have a loving relationship with you again. That's and that's the most intimate thing. And what on a material level, even what is the thing that brings us the highest happiness? It's relationships. If you don't have relationships, you may have a lot of money in the bank. You may be very good looking. You may have all the talents of the world. But if you don't have good relationships, you will be miserable, right? And the more intimate, and we're not just searching for relationship, we're looking for intimate relationships. And that's what is going on in Vrindavan. Even the residents of Vaikuntha, they don't have a super intimate relationship with the Lord, because that awe and reverence that they experience for the Lord acts as a, you could say, a little kind of impediment to that intimacy. But in Vrindavan, you know, the residents of Vrindavan, they are just like seeing Krishna as a friend or as a son or you know, as a lover. It's not, there is no hinder. So it's the most, so we can see that whatever hidden, that, you know, proita, dharma proita, kaitavotra, that, you know, fruitive mentality acts as an impediment for us to have a personal, intimate relationship with the Lord. Is it clear? Chatura Mate, you still have your hand up. You want to comment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I just want to say this congenial form of intimacy means that the Lord has loving exchange with every jiva with different rasas, because the Lord is the fountainhead of all rasas. And then the Lord reciprocate with this jiva based on his free will.
Yeah, that's correct. Akila Rasamita Murti. Muni Krishna Prabhu.
Sometimes as we are not, as I'm not advanced devotee, as we are not advanced devotees, we sometimes feel by doing devotional service, we'll get out of this material world and we'll go back to Goloka, right? So that in that motive we'll do devotional service. So is that perfect, or else still we need to be purified to get into a Ahetuka mode?
Okay, you answer your question. I think you have the answer for your question.
Okay. So better we need to wait for purification to get into Ahetuka mode, right, bro? Am I correct, bro?
Definitely. Definitely. Because we can only start from where we're at, okay? But the point is that, you see, why do we want to go back home, back to Godhead? Is it to be with Krishna and to serve him? Or is it because we're fried out here and we cannot fulfill our material desires? Yeah. You see, if the reason is that we are just like, you know, frustrated in material existence, that's more like aiming towards liberation, you know, or towards the heavenly planets. But the desire should be that I want to give Krishna pleasure. And that the example is the gopis, that even though, you know, when Krishna had the headache, you know, they were prepared to go to hell for eternity, you know, just to alleviate Krishna's headache with the dust of their feet. So that's the goal. And the means to the goal is the same. We practice in pure bhakti, but we have to refine our desire. There was one time that the devotees asked, it's a little bit connected with the question, but not exactly. But anyway, Prabhupada was asked one time, that he said, what is more important, going back to Godhead or preaching? And Prabhupada's answer was, those who are preaching, they're already back home, back to Godhead. Because being, you know, going back to Godhead is not just a locality. It is a locality in one sense. You know, someone could challenge me on that one, but the most important thing is a state of consciousness. That's, you know, that's the most important thing. And therefore the devotee Narayana, you know, Narayana Parayana, that he's not, you know, he's not bothered. You can send me to hell, you can send me whatever you want, as far as I remember you. So right from the beginning, the Bhagavatam is teaching us this, is explaining that that's the goal, that, you know, we come to that, the true standard of religion is when we act for Krishna's pleasure. And we have experience of this, but we are a little bit kind of jaundiced, you know, and still the material attraction is very strong. And you know, when we're reading these verses, sometimes we may become a little disheartened, you know, because it seems like, wow, it's so far, you know, to come to this point. But it should not be like that. The point is that we are on the path, and then the process is powerful. We should be patient. But like you said, you know, at this moment, maybe even just to desire purification, that's quite a lofty goal, you know, to be purified. That's devotional service in goodness, you know. But okay, so Golokeshwari, Mate, you have your hand up?
Yes, Prabhuji. I just had one doubt after Muni Krishna Prabhu asked. So he was telling about the frustration, and you were also telling about the frustration. So is frustration is the beginning point for devotional service, Prabhu? Once you get frustrated with the material life, and then you're like, okay, this is not giving me any happiness, and you take up Krishna conscious seriously. Is it not the stepping stone for them to progress in Krishna conscious, Prabhu?
Generally is for most of the time it is. Most of the times it is, you know, the distress. We become distressed with material life, and Prabhupada says the beginning of human life is Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Now it's time to inquire about the absolute truth. Prabhupada said, you know, why am I suffering? He said when the spirit, when the wandering living entity in the material world come to that point that he asks, why am I suffering so much? I try to enjoy, I try to do this, and why am I suffering? You know, that's the beginning of the inquire. Atato Brahmaji. Now is okay, this is not working. Now let's inquire. So you could say it's a stepping stone. Prabhupada definitely said, Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, he said that one of the biggest stepping stones in one's spiritual journey is to understand that no material situation is going to make me happy. But these are the stepping stones. They are not the goal. That's the point. You know, the goal is not becoming free from suffering. The goal is not becoming, you know, the goal is to love Krishna. That's the goal. The goal is not you know, to become peaceful. That's a byproduct. That's liberation, Brahman. We want to cultivate that relationship with Krishna, which is much more nourishing than any of all that. And in that relationship with Krishna, we will be able to transcend the miseries of material existence. Okay, so let's move ahead because, I mean, we discussed verse 6, but what's coming is all related to this, so we'll move faster, Krishna willing. Do you need a break? It's 3:30 now. Shall we have
Prabhu.
Okay, so let's take a break. It's 3:30. We'll resume at 10:40. Okay, 10 minutes from now.
Cool. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji.
Okay, so we're continuing with our discussion.
Just a small thing, Prabhuji. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just for a small time in between, I went on mute. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how did it happen.
No problem.
I'm sorry about that. Hare Krishna.
Text number 7. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Asubhairagyam Gyanan Chatyat Ahai Tukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So this, again, this is the answer to the, you know, the first two questions. Actually, these two verses answer the first two questions. Now, the thing is that sometimes it is explained that verse number 6 is like the prayojana, and this is the avideya. Okay? Because one may think that, for example, if I want to perform pure bhakti, like it is described in verse number 6, without any type of, you know, motivation or interruption, then I gotta have knowledge and I have to have detachment. Because unless I have that conviction that Krishna consciousness is the ultimate good, I won't do it. And even if I have the conviction that Krishna consciousness is the ultimate good, but I don't have the detachment, I won't do it either, right? Because if you don't have knowledge, then you don't have the inspiration, the motivation to do it. And if you don't have the detachment, you won't do it because you're too attached. So one may think that one may need to acquire knowledge and detachment in order to attain to that platform of pure bhakti. But now, in answer to that kind of doubt in the mind that we may have, Sutta Goswami is saying here that Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnanayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanansha Yat Ahaitukam. That by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. And knowledge and detachment are the goals of other processes. If you remember in the study of Bhagavad Gita, or the study of the yoga ladder, we saw that what places you at different long rungs of the yoga ladder is knowledge, right? Knowledge and detachment. As you are progressing through the path of karma yoga, what are you getting? You're getting more knowledge. And the result of that knowledge is what? Is detachment. But actually, so one, as I said, the point we may hear is that the goal of karma yoga is knowledge, and the goal of jnana yoga is detachment. But these goals of other processes are automatically attained very rapidly through the practice of bhakti. So in other words, there is no need to perform any other type of dharma. Through the performance of dharma, of bhakti yoga itself, one can acquire all the goals of any other practice. And it means like costless knowledge. It's like, we as I was saying, even in the beginning, early stages of practicing Krishna consciousness, I was just coming to you. That just came to my mind today. I never used that example before, but it is the same point that within a short point of coming in touch with Krishna consciousness, so much knowledge came. The topics of the discussion, they were all centered about the absolute truth and the purpose of human life, and elevation through consciousness, and there wasn't so much study. It's like the knowledge is there in the heart and it's manifesting. Like I remember that story that there was this, I think it was a big person. He came to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He had a big question that no one was able to answer him. And when he came, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was busy. So he was sent to do some service. He said, was coming to the temple, okay, let's go and wash some plates. And this went on for some time, and when eventually it was time for him to go and see Bhaktisiddhanta, he said, so what's your question? He said, no, it's already answered. How? Through washing pots. Cleaning the pots. That brought the answer. So costless, it means like it's coming, you don't have to do an external practice to acquire that knowledge, It's self-manifested, and it's knowledge which is not interested in liberation. Also, the example is given there as well, that this knowledge is free from the desire for liberation. Okay, so and it is so wonderful, in like, and detachment comes along with the practice of bhakti as well. As we are practicing Krishna consciousness, we're becoming more and more detached. Yes or not? Sometimes it seems that we're becoming more attached. because Krishna just, the process exposes our attachments. We didn't see them before, right? We didn't know how attached we were before being a devotee. Particularly when it comes to the platform of anartha and nibriti, it's like Maya saying, okay, well, I know you're trying hard, but are you sure you don't want this? Are you sure you don't want that? Are you sure? Like that? And it's like, you know. But Krishna is, you know, the process of Krishna consciousness is very deep, and everything has to be taken out. Like Krishna's like a little boy, you know, and he's coming to us. And we're going to Krishna and say, look, Krishna, I'm doing bhaktivaibhava now. I'm doing bhaktivaibhava. I'm chanting my 16 rounds every day. And, you know, I am doing some preaching. And I'm following Ekadashi, you know. And then, but we're going to Krishna like this. You know, Krishna, I'm doing this. I'm doing all these things, you know. I'm doing all these things, Krishna. I'm doing all these things. And then Krishna is like, yeah, this is really wonderful, but what are you keeping on that hand there? What is in that hand? No, but Krishna, you know, I'm doing this also, don't you? And Krishna said, yeah, it's nice, but what is in that hand? That's what Krishna wants. So that, you know, as we move on the path, these things will come up, and then we'll have to give them up also, you know. So that at that time, it seems that we were more attached than before we joined the movement, because we were not aware of those things. So it should not become discouraged. Does it make sense to you, this? Or is it only me? Yeah? Okay, so text 6 and 7, that's the answer to the question. Okay, let's continue. There's beautiful verses coming now. Okay, let's read text 8. Dharma sunustita pumsam visvakshena katasuyat
Padayati Rama eva hi kevalam.
Okay, translation. Or the occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke an attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. Okay. So this is a very, very, you know, emphatic point that Sutta Goswami is making here. All occupational engagements are so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the personality of Godhead. So you see, the answer, this is all supporting the initial answer to the question, that the ultimate good is to perform bhakti, to develop a relationship with Krishna. And anything that doesn't support that ultimate goal is to be rejected. It's useless. And the Sanskrit words used here are very strong. It's like very emphatic. It's shama eva hi kevalam. It's like it's like certainly, without a doubt. You know, this is you know, it's just useless labor. Because it doesn't fulfill the actual goal of human life. Okay, so let's read a bit from some of these purports. Okay, someone can read? Anyone?
Yeah. Becoming detached from material, becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether, as men with poor fund of knowledge think. Naish karma means not understanding activities that will produce good or bad effects.
Undertaking.
Sorry, not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. The bhakti cult is meant for realization of the positive form. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if this verse was gonna be here. Okay, so this is a famous verse from the 11th canto. Bhakti parishanubhavo viraktir anya sacha ishatrika eka kala prapadyamanasya yatastasyus tushti pustichut apayonugasam. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things, these three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. So it's a very nice analogy in which the comparison is made. When a person is eating, three things are taking place. He's being nourished, he's enjoying, and he is becoming free from hunger. So similarly, when we are engaged in the practice of bhakti, three things are taking place. One of them is that we're getting realization of the Lord, personal direction of the Lord. We are deriving pleasure from that activity, and then we're also becoming free from attachment. And the word used in this context is virakti. Virakti means, so three things: bhakti parishanubhavo viraktir, devotion, direct perception, and detachment. And virakti is in this time, the virakti in this context is not like one becomes renounced in the sense that, you know, that one gives up the objects of the sense gratification. But virakti means that even in the presence of the objects of sense gratification, one is not attracted. One is not attracted. And this is, in one sense, what the previous purport that we were talking about, we were reading that Krishna consciousness is not so much about giving up things as much as it is about engaging in the positive, which is Krishna consciousness. But what happens is automatically when we engage in the practice of bhakti, automatically we give up material engagements. Okay, so I think here. So this is the analysis. So bhakti or devotion is compared to tushti, satisfaction. They both take the form of pleasure. Parishanubhava, the experience of the Lord, is compared to pushti or nourishment, which sustains one's life. Oops, sorry. Okay, and virakti, detachment, is compared to kshut apaya, cessation of hunger, free from further hankering, so one may experience shanti. So the point me made here is that, Krishna consciousness, this is what happens when we engage in devotional service. We gain full satisfaction. And the nature of pure bhakti, like I was saying, okay, let's just analyze. I wanted to open this for discussion before, and I said, okay, let's explore the verses a little more. So why is it? Why is it? Because, this is one of the purposes of the goals on the Srimad-Bhagavatam, okay? And it's to establish what is the topmost avideya, what is the supreme avideya, what is the topmost practice, what is the topmost sadhana, and that's devotion, devotional service. So why is devotional service superior to any other process? Let's do a brainstorm. Just type in the box, why is bhakti superior to any other process? You can refer to Bhakti Shastri for this, not just to our discussion today. It's a very, very important topic. You all gone blank? Samuel, you look like, I don't know if you are thoughtful or you are like switch off.
I'm there, Prabhu. I'm writing in the chat, so that's why.
Okay, who was that? Who was writing in the chat? Priya, what's your looking? I don't remember how you look. Okay. Okay, so you wrote in the chat. Nothing came out yet. Archana Bhakti, tell us. I mean, if you don't have an answer for this, it means your Bhakti Shastri degree, we have to reconsider. We may have to cancel it. Because this is Bhakti Shastri level. The whole Bhagavad Gita is about, you know, the yoga ladder and why Bhakti is at the top, right? So come on, you don't remember any of it? I mean, and we have been talking about it for the last 2 weekends. And now you cannot tell me how Bhakti is superior? Come on, you gotta give me at least one thing. I mean, if someone comes to you and say, well, why do you do all this Krishna consciousness? Why is it? Why do you do this Krishna consciousness? Why would you waste your life, you know, following all these rules and regulations instead of enjoying yourself and having a good family, making good money, you know, instead of being just a parasite, chanting Hare Krishna, doing nothing? How will you reply to this?
Can I say something?
It's the topmost, you know, I'm doing the topmost activity. Okay, so why is it the topmost activity? Why Krishna consciousness is the topmost activity? Come on, I mean, if you can answer this, then it means you're following mechanically. You've been cheated. You've been told to do something and it's not really, you know, you don't have the jnana, the reason to do it. Clear? Is the question clear? Why is Bhakti the top? Okay, let's take a softer approach. I'm interested in this Krishna consciousness. You look very happy people. Why should I join the movement? Why should I join your movement? What am I going to get out of it? Archana Bhakti.
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhuji, it is a easy process to execute.
Okay. Okay. 1 point. It is easy. It is easier than any other process. Okay. That's a criteria. It is easier than any other process. Good. Continue.
It is a direct process, Prabhu.
What do you mean a direct process?
The other processes, you know, the ultimate goal is Krishna, love for Krishna, and the other processes will take us to another level of the ladder until and unless you know, we go to the next process and next process and next process until we come to the supreme.
Good, thank you. Okay, we'll keep your Bhakti Shastri degree. We'll keep it there. Okay, Ananda Vardhana Prabhu.
Prabhuji, yes, Mataji has already covered the same point. I said, because it gives direct connection to Krishna, who is the goal of every yoga. But going victory processes
It's breaking up too much. We cannot hear you because of the internet, unfortunately.
Hear
It's too choppy. Sorry. Anyway, whatever you said that we had, it was good. So we'll take it. We'll keep your Bhakti Shastri title also. No worries. Okay, Samuel.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhu. One thing I was reading recently, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was speaking about Bhakti says real selfishness. Says everybody is selfish. There is nobody is unselfish, but better to be selfish with the real sense of self. So Bhakti, because it's selfishness based on the real understanding of the self, then it gives the pleasure of the self. So in that sense, we get the real pleasure because we have the real conception of who we are. Therefore, we have real selfishness.
So, but why? Why? You're right. But why is it the real selfishness? Why Bhakti is the in one sense you're saying you are answering the question by establishing the same point that the question is making. I'm saying, well, why Bhakti is the best? And you're saying, well, Bhakti is the best because it's the best. So, but why, if I want to be selfish, if I really want to be selfish, why will I engage in Bhakti? I mean, you touch upon it, but it wasn't clear enough.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that would be connected. I mean, that's why when you were asking the question, I was wondering if you were asking this question in relationship with a particular verse that you were studying, because in one sense, it's a very kind of open question.
This open question, but this is the topic that we are discussing right now. This is directly to these verses, because the sadhana, the answer to the question of the sages is Bhakti. So why? Why not jnana? Why not vairagya? Why not, karma kanda? Why not anything else? And we have given a lot of knowledge of Sambandha also on the prelude of the introduction to the Bhagavatam. So in connection with that, you can also answer the question. You see, we're supposed to, being able to assimilate the knowledge and being able to kind of, understand how that practically, how that affects my life. Because at the end of the day, to be a devotee, we make big sacrifices, It's not like, we are spending 2 hours chanting japa, we are, doing morning program. Some of us, we are like, offering our food, we're restraining the senses, we're doing so many things, Why will I want to do that? Why will I want to do that? I could engage that energy into learning to play football, or doing some other activity. Maybe I become a good footballer and I'm gonna get more money paid as a footballer. I'm gonna get paid as being a devotee. That's the nature of Kali Yuga, right? So I mean, it's a crude example, but why is it that Bhakti is the best? We should be very clear. That should act as a catalyst for our Bhakti, for our motivation that, I want to do this. I really want to do this. I'm not going to give it up, Like Haridas Thakur, he said, you may cut my tongue, but I will never stop praising the glories of the holy name. He had understood that. That was the topmost process. He was ready to give up his life. So it's being established here. How is it being established? Okay. Muni Krishna Prabhu.
With my understanding from past lectures, I'm not sure, Prabhu, but I'll just share two things. One, it develops one with love of Godhead, and second one, it pleases directly. It pleases Lord. Bhakti pleases pure Bhakti pleases Bhagavan.
Actually, that's the point. It gives the highest result. What is the ultimate goal? Is to attain love of God. It gives the highest result. Okay, that's one reason. Thank you. Ramananda Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna Puji, we can see from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, from the story of Narad Muni searched the topmost devotee. So finally, we see from Brahmanas, then king, then Prahlad Maharaj, then Hanuman, and then finally he reached to the gopis. Then he understands that gopis, the loving reciprocation to Krishna is the topmost. So gopis are the topmost devotee of Krishna. So their bhakti bhav is topmost. And from another example, we can see that Prabhuji, like
No,
when
Ramananda
Krishna
Krishna.
said,
Wait a minute, but that doesn't answer the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have another example, Prabhuji. Yeah,
Okay.
like when Uddhav went to Vrindavan, and Uddhav is like he has so much knowledge, Jnana Marga. But as soon as he saw gopis, how they are crying for
But
Krishna.
you're giving, but still, it's using the same. You are not answering the question. Why? Why is it that the gopis, because you know in the example of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, you're explaining who is the topmost devotee. Okay, so already Bhakti has been established as a supreme process, but out of those who are performing Bhakti, who are the best? Who is the best? But the question here is why Bhakti is the best? And even
like
you're using the
Prabhupada
example
also,
of Uddhava, you're
yeah.
using the example of Uddhava. Okay, Uddhava wanted to take the dust of the you know the lotus feet of the gopis, but why? Charulata.
Yes, Prabhuji. Like
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Prabhuji, same question one time Prabhupada himself asked to his disciples while giving one lecture. So Prabhupada was asking like, why you are believing me? Why are you chanting Hare Krishna? And why you believe that this Hare Krishna Muhammad is the best? Why you are like you? Why? So many disciples like giving different answers. But one disciple, I forgot name, he told Prabhupada, okay, Prabhupada, when I chant Hare Krishna, then I feel Krishna inside my heart. So that is why I chant. And then Prabhupada was, yes, this is right.
Yes, very nice. Actually, it was a morning walk. Actually, it was in a class. And Prabhupada said, how do you know Krishna is God? That was the question. How do you know Krishna is God? And the devotee said, well, because he says in Bhagavad Gita, and because this, and Prabhupada was not satisfied with any of those questions. And then there was one bhakta, I don't think he was even initiated at the time, and he said, you know, Prabhupada, because I feel it. And Prabhupada said, yes, you know.
Yes.
On another occasion, Prabhupada asked the same question, and someone said like this, and Prabhupada said, well, it's because it says in the Bhagavad Gita. So different context, right? But because I feel it, well, what do you feel? It gives the highest pleasure to the soul. That's the criteria that is being established. Janatma suprasidati, that's what is being said, by which all humanity can be satisfied. It gives the highest goal. It can be performed by everyone. When talking about pratihata, it means that, you know, it's uninterrupted. It's not hindered by any material circumstances. That's another meaning of apratihata. Okay, that devotional service is transcendental. You can do it anytime, anywhere. Anyone can do it. You can do it. You can be in the womb. Prahlad Maharaj, in the womb, he did it. He did devotional service. Parikshit Maharaj, he saw Krishna in the womb. You can do it in any type of body. Even in an animal body, they can do bhakti. There are examples. It's not the general rule, right? But we have the example of Bharat Maharaj as the deer. Hanuman, you know, is not hindered by any material circumstances, you know, no matter how, you know, devoid, you know. But for any other practice, like for example, for the practice of jnana, you have to be renounced. You cannot be a grihasta and practice jnana. You have to be celibate. So bhakti is the topmost because there is no material qualification. Anyone can do it. It's the easiest. You get the topmost result. And because it's natural for the living entity, it gives the highest pleasure. Because a symptom of doing the right thing is that we're deriving pleasure out of it. And if we're not getting pleasure out of Krishna consciousness, it means that somehow we are not fully doing it for Krishna. We're not, it's not, you know, there is a misalignment there, or some purification is taking place also. You cannot expect that, you know, all of a sudden we are, you know, be pure devotees. The process is slow in one sense. It's gradual. It's gradual. Okay, is that clear? It is natural for the souls, basically. It is natural. So it's a few hands up, and if you want to add something to what I already said, you please unmute yourself and just say. Because
just very quickly, Prabhuji.
Prema Manjari, go ahead.
Let it carry.
Usually, because before you ask what would we say to one person,
yeah,
so I often say that bhakti is the only path that will remove all suffering forever. So this is one point, and then another point. It's only bhakti which reveals our eternal identity from all other.
That's even higher. Bhakti will reveal our eternal identity. Other processes may remove suffering, you know,
but not forever.
Yeah, not forever. I mean, you know, when talking about impersonal liberation,
yeah,
it's kind of quite, you know, it's quite a bit of time. But yeah, you're right. Krishna consciousness will remove suffering and will reveal our eternal identity. That's the key point. It will give the topmost goal. Therefore, we should be serious about it. And that's why they say, you know, Sutta Goswami is making all these verses. Okay, Charulata, you want to say something, or is it? And also, Jamastami Prabhu, you wanted to say something?
Just a quick point.
I think pretty much.
I was saying that it attracts the all attractive.
Yeah,
that is.
It's the only way to attract Krishna. Very nice. Jamastami.
Just very quickly, Prabhuji, I think what Mataji was saying exactly what my point was. The only thing is, I've heard Srila Prabhupada talking about like the way you've got body needs nourishment and food, soul needs chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra and pure bhakti as a food that just basically coincides and works together.
Yeah, but exactly. And the basis of this is what we're studying right now, because it's the nature of the soul. And if the soul doesn't engage in its natural activity, we dry up. We have emotional needs, you know, mental needs, physical needs, and we have spiritual needs. And unless we fulfill all those needs, particularly the need of the soul, we're going to remain dissatisfied. Like someone said, that we have a hole so big in our hearts that only God can fill it. You know? So we're trying to fill a goal with, okay, a little bit of smoking here, or a little bit of sex, or a little bit of money, a little bit of fashion, children, big house, but it's not enough. It's not enough. We need something more. Okay, that's what is being established. Anyway, we're going a little slow today, but it's just such a kind of foundational points that I want to make sure that it's established now. Let's see. Okay, so now we're verse 8. Dharma. So Dharma should evoke our divine consciousness. In other words, it should, you know, provoke our, you know, attraction for the Supreme Lord. Okay, verse number 9. Prabhupada one time was asked by a reporter, which one is the most important verse in your books? And Prabhupada answered with this verse, verse number 9. Dharmasya hyapavargasya nartarta yupakalpate nartasya dharma kantasya kamo lavaya hismita. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational duty, service, should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Wow, huh? Such a verse. So our, dharma is meant for apavarga. Dharma sya hi apavarga sya. Narto artha. Dharma sya hi apavarga sya. Dharma should be aimed at apavarga, at liberation, not at material gain. And even if one gains material gain, such material gain should never use to cultivate sense gratification. Because sense gratification entangles us in the material world. It increases the fever, it increases the disease. That's the cause why we're in the material world. We're meant to give that up. Okay. Now, verse 10 is very, very famous also, because the Prabhupada simple living, high thinking comes from this verse. Kamasyanendriya pritir labo jive tayavata jivasya tattva jigyasa narto yasya chahakarmavi. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. What one should desire? Only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human life is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So, Sutta Goswami is like hammering it, So we get it right. But it can be subject to misinterpretation.
Oh, just, sorry, Prabhuji, can you just go to the previous slide? I just want to see that slide again.
Okay, let's try.
No, previous one where you had all the.
I'm trying. Okay. Okay, can I move? I'm going to read a little bit from the purports here. It's very interesting. Okay, someone, Radharaman Prabhu, would you like to read?
Because foolish people have no information of the soul and how it is beyond the purview of the body and mind, they are not satisfied in the performance of their occupational duties. The question of the satisfaction of the soul is raised herein. The self is beyond the gross body and the subtle mind. He is the potent active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument of the body and mind. The body and the mind are but superfluous outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's need must be fulfilled. Simply by cleansing the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself. Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.8 purport.
Okay. I'm just, we already discussed these points, but just kidding directly from Prabhupada. Okay, someone else can read.
Therefore, we are trying to render our humble service to the human society to give this information that you are trying for so many things for becoming happy, but instead of being happy, you are becoming hippie. So please take this Krishna consciousness and actually you will be happy. That is our mission. That's our mission. Therefore, the Bhagavata says to this civilized human being, those who have got some religious principle, church, religious institution, that you are executing your religious principles very nicely. That's all right. But if you do not develop
Sorry, my fault.
If you do not develop the propensity for hearing about God, Vishvakshena Kathasuyaha. So you can have your churches, temples, or mosques, but if you do not develop your tendency to hear about God, then it will not be successful. Shrama evahi kevalam, Shrama evahi kevalam. Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.8 lecture in September 1972 by Srila Prabhupada.
Okay.
Therefore,
yeah.
I'll continue, Prabhuji.
Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead.
It's the same page.
Yeah, it's already read. So the point is being made that the purpose of Dharma is to develop Krishna consciousness. That's the purpose. And that is the only thing that is going to satisfy the soul completely. Someone else.
Therefore, our Krishna conscious movement is to give chance to the people in general hearing about Krishna. That's all. Either hearing Hare Krishna mantra or hearing Bhagavad Gita or hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, anything you like, hear about Krishna. Try to hear about Krishna in meek and humble attitude. Then gradually everything will be revealed. Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.8, Vrindavan, October 19, 1972.
This is consolidating the need. This is a very nice also from the purpose. Someone else.
The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit. The personality of Godhead. There is a dormant affection for God within everyone. Spiritual existence is manifested through the gross body and mind in the form of coveted affection for the gross and subtle matter.
Go ahead. Continue.
Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord. And any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said to herein be simply a waste of time.
Okay. Someone else.
You are working so hard simply for maintaining your body. No, you work hard, keep yourself fit, but live for Tattva Jigyasa. That is life. Tattva Jigyasa. What I am? What is God? What is this material world? Why I have come here? Why I am put into so much trouble? These are the inquiries. Not that every day go to market. That is not Tattva Jigyasa. That is Indriya Priti, howling in the market. Srimad-Bhagavatam 128, Bombay, December 26, 1972.
Okay. Clear, eh? But now these points can be also misused. I'm going to read text. Okay, text 9 we already read, and text. Let's see. This is, yeah. Okay, more on this. Let's hear a little more from the purpose. Someone else.
You can discharge your duty very nicely, but you have no see whether you are developing attachment for Krishna. Attachment means love. Wherever you are trying to satisfy Krishna, that is the test. If that is not done, simply formulas, if you execute the formula without any satisfaction of Krishna, then Sutta Goswami says it is simply laboring and waste of time. Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.8.
Okay. So how could this, all that we have read, how could it be misused, or what will be a balanced application of it, basically? How could it be misused? Is the question clear? Chatura says no. Okay. How all that we have just read, you know, all occupational engagements a man makes, they're only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. How could be a misapplication of that? Samuel has his hand up. Let him speak.
Yes, Prabhu. I mean, I think there's a verse in the 11th canto that Krishna tells Uddhava that unless one comes to the level of Ruchi, if he gives up his occupational duties like prematurely, then he's not gonna get, he's not qualified unless he comes to a certain level to just give up everything like this, because we have to come to a certain level also of purification of the heart through, doing our occupational duties while connecting to Krishna consciousness, and that's what. But to the level that we're not there, we still have to act according to Varna and ashram and different considerations like this. So maybe premature, premature or like false renunciation, things like this could come with not understanding these principles.
Yeah, precise. That's a very good answer. Thank you for that. Okay, Jan Mastami.
Yes, Prabhuji. I think that's pretty much very good answer for Prabhuji. When I was listening, I think that's maturity. Sometimes we actually use Srila Prabhupada's verses to show our immaturity and try and satisfy our own position, instead of actually understanding the real essence behind it, because it's taken out of context sometimes. Now, one thing I have seen in one of the class here in New Zealand, in Auckland, there's one devotee who was asking this question in the class, saying that what Srila Prabhupada meant by simple living and high thinking to a different way of saying we should just cut down everything and live with pretty much bare minimum or minimalistic lifestyle.
Okay, we haven't reached to that verse yet. Can we just put that on hold until we'll read the verse, because that's verse 10, and we haven't reached to that one. But yeah, I know you want to connect it with this, carrying all your duties, but simple living, I think, is the next topic. So if it's okay, we can. Is that okay?
Okay, no problem. Yes, fine. Sure.
Shri Narayan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can we say like misuse can be in terms of something called as the Falgu Vairagya, where I just do this kind of a renunciation. I'll not try to follow certain things, but I'll just say, oh, I have just renounced certain things.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching upon it. You're touching upon it. It will need a little more explanation than that. Can you give me an example?
Like I will just say, oh, I will not. For me, service is more important than taking care of my parents, like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Yamastami Prabhu said and Samuel said, that, it requires a little bit of maturity, because sometimes it can be renunciation in the mode of passion. I renounce, okay, well, my family, they're not interested in Krishna consciousness anyway. She's like, casual about spiritual life, and, there is just an obstacle. There's just an obstacle. I have to spend so much time with them to maintain them. I just go to Vrindavan and chant Hare Krishna the whole day. That's in line with the teachings of Sutta Goswami in this verse. And it's created havoc in the society, this kind of mentality. It sounds kind of a joke, but these things are pretty real, So there must be a balance. And there should not be a disconnect. When we come to Krishna consciousness, our occupational duties, they become our part of our devotional practices. Looking after our families, we are not just we're looking after devotees. So it should be integrated. And the point that Samuel was making, and it's very important, and it's mentioned that real piety is when one can follow his duties according to his own position. So, like Mitya Chara, that we should not act on a platform that we're not on yet. Or someone, another example could be the case of someone who needs to get married. And he doesn't want to get married because he's read all these verses. So, I will get entangled in marriage life if, but if he needs it, then marriage is good for him. If he doesn't, marriage is Maya. But for someone who needs to get married, it's not. It's the right thing to do. Archana Bhakti.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So it also falls under the same thing as.
It's really the volume is very low. You need to come closer to the mic.
Yes, Prabhu. Am I audible now, Prabhu?
It's very low, but anyway, okay, go ahead.
Prabhuji, one may pose to be very exalted, so it is again pretentious, and in the mind he may be having a lot of material attachments, but outwardly may say that he is completely renounced. That kind of mithyachara, basically.
Okay. So we have explored some negative. Now what will be the appropriate way to implement this in our lives? I was just seeing the other day they put in Dandavats about one devotee. He's in Delhi, and he's like a genius. I forgot his name, Caitanya-caritamrta or something like that. And he's like, I don't know if any of you saw the thing. He's like being awarded one title in the US that only one Indian had got that title before, an award, since 1920. He's like a genius. He's like a super, qualified professionally. He's good at music. He's good at sports, And he was offered like a, job in a big company for many crores of rupees per year. And he's decided to give all the up and become a full-time brahmachari, in Delhi, I was thinking, wow, that's impressive, someone who with such a prospect to give all the up, for just being a simple brahmachari. So that could be in one sense, we could be, I'm sure that this person has, been advised and he has consulted and taken the decision carefully. So I'm not saying that he's making the wrong decision at all. I'm actually saying the opposite. It's very inspiring to see that someone of that caliber, he values simple devotional service so much. I remember that when the Yuhu temple was being built, His Holiness Giriraj Swami, he was there, and he was the son of a very, very wealthy lawyer in the US, very wealthy lawyer. And, they were living in Yuhu. There was no temple. There were rats. There were snakes. There were very poor conditions to, they were doing tremendous austerity, and his father came all the way from the US, and he came with a check for $1 million. Now we're talking of 1970s, early 70s, okay? So that could be like, I don't know, maybe at least $20 million now, I will say. Okay. And he gave him that. And he said, what do I want this for? I'm happy here. And look at him to this day. He became a sannyasi and a guru, and he's fully dedicated to the mission. He didn't really need it, So these are like a positive examples of people who are actually qualified, and they were getting a higher taste. And it's wonderful to hear about this. At the same time, there may be other people who may, may require a different, they're not ready for being a sannyasi, for being a brahmachari for their whole lives. And it's okay. It is fine. And people who are like that should be advised to do what is convenient for them. The best ashram is not sannyas. The best ashram is not brahmachari. The best ashram is not grihastha or vanaprastha. The best ashram is the one that suits you the best for performing your devotional practices. So there is a risk when we hear this, we get all fired up, like all bhakti, never, I had enough material life. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with it. But there has to be some, like a maturity and some taking responsibility for our material duties as well. Anyway, I just wanted to add that into the equation because I think it's important. Make sense? Clear? Is it clear? And we're going to hear a lot of like a very bold preaching in these first chapters, and it's really inspiring. We're gonna hear Narada Muni in the next unit, and that's like also like he's just like cutting through the misconceptions, yeah? But it has to be properly applied. That's my point. Okay, so let's see what else we have here on the PowerPoint. Let's see. Okay, so overview. Now we're moving verses 9 to 16. So you can complete the words here. Life desire should never be directed towards what?
Sense gratification, Prabhu.
Thank you. Since the human life is meant for?
Self-realization.
Yeah, good. Now, text 10. What should I desire while living in the material world? What is the purpose of human life? We didn't read that verse yet. Or maybe, no, we did actually, didn't we? Let's see. Yeah,
Love of the
understanding the Supreme.
One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since the human life is meant for inquire about the absolute truth. So what is the absolute truth is going to be described in text 11. How to realize the absolute truth is going to be described in text 12. What is the true effect of religion is text 13. How should I act? Text 14. How can I become free from the bondage of work? Text 15. And after hearing all this, I have no taste for hearing. So what do I do? Okay, text 16. It's very nice the way everything is, structured. The presentation by Sutta Goswami is really wonderful. Okay, so we just read text 10. Text 10. So this is from the. Sorry, one second. We can read text 10 again, actually, because just to refresh your memory. It says, life desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Now, Prabhupada writes in the purport, remember that this is a simple living high thinking. So anyone would like to read this? We have a few cameras switched off there.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that you're all there. So maybe any of those with the cameras off, you can read now. Lakshania, would you like to read?
Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagement in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth in every sphere of life. Therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth, and that sort of engagement will make one happy, because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows. Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.10.
So any comments on this? Anybody would like to comment? Because you see, these verses 2 and verses 9, I mean, all these verses for the matter, but 9 and 10, they're specifically focusing on this idea that life desires should never be directed towards gratification, And Prabhupada translated this as simple living high thinking. In other words, we keep our lifestyle very, very simple so that we can devote more time towards the higher endeavor of self-realization. While materialistic Western society is making life very, very complicated, leaving practically no time for the endeavor of self-realization. Prabhupada, he wanted fun communities. He wanted us to live in nature. He wanted us to live simply, just so that we don't have to get too entangled in materialistic way of living, so that we have more time for the practice of Krishna consciousness. And it is very famous quote, this we just read, seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification. Why? Because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. Like someone who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness, I mean, we don't have much time free, right? The days are pretty full, isn't it? Like as a, as devotees, I remember that when I was doing book distribution, I always introduce myself as a monk, and then people would say, well, what do you do, And I will tell them, and then, we'll come to say, well, we don't drink, we don't take intoxication, we don't have illicit sex, we don't eat meat, we don't gamble. And they were like, so what do you do, What do you do? And I said, well, actually, on the top of that, those days there were no internet. So I said, but on the top of that, we don't watch TV. And it was like, wow, what do you do in your life? I said, well, we're so busy in the cultivation of Krishna consciousness that, I didn't tell them that because they couldn't understand that. But I will say that, the most interesting thing about this, about being a monk, I've never been bored, not once since I became a monk. I don't get time to be bored because we have so much engagement. So this is the lifestyle of a devotee. The devotee is always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. Okay. So text 11. Famous verse. Vadanti tat vidas tatvat gyat jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavam iti sabdite. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So now we have three features of the absolute truth. The point here is that the previous verses have explained that the goal of life is to realize the absolute truth. So now, having established that as the goal, what is the absolute truth? That was established at the beginning of the Bhagavatam. Now this is another verse, Sambandha, where the absolute is being described in three features. Okay? So we have three aspects of the same absolute truth. Now, how many absolute truths are there? It's described as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, right? So you see, how many absolute truths is there? Let's see how awake you are. How many absolute truths are there? Huh? Type, you can type on the chat box. Or you can unmute yourself and say, how many absolute truths are there?
There is one absolute truth, Prabhuji, but there are three different features.
Are you sure?
Yes, Prabhuji.
I saw some people saying three like this. It's only one, right? It's only one.
Yeah, and three.
But the perception of the same absolute truth is different according to the level of realization of the seeker, or according to the practice. The practice that, and this is again why Bhakti is supreme, because Bhakti, it gives us full realization of the absolute truth. Like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that asamsayam samagram mam yatagyasasi tashrinu. Now you can know me in full, free from doubt. Samsayam samagram mam. He says that, and what is in full means knowing the absolute truth as a person. There are different levels of realization, and on the first level we have Brahman, which is realized by jnana, and that gives us one aspect of the absolute truth. Then Paramatma is realized through yoga, which is is another aspect of the absolute truth. Prabhupada uses different analogies to explain this. And Bhagavan is realized by Bhakti, Sachit Ananda. So Prabhupada uses example of the train who is approaching the mountain, and from the distance he's only seeing the mountain. As he coming closer, he's seeing more variety, and as he comes closer, he sees people in the mountain, or with the sun rays, the sun disk, and the sun god. But the point is that the absolute truth is one and can be realized in three features as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And the ultimate realization of the absolute truth is realizing the absolute truth as not just the all-pervading or the localized aspect, situated within the heart of everyone and maintaining and providing for everyone, but as Bhagavan, Krishna, as a person whom we can have loving relationships with. Okay. So there is the famous painting, that one time, they put all these different people blinded into a room with an elephant, and they were all touching different parts of the elephant, and they were all coming with different understandings of the absolute truth. So similarly, the absolute truth is perceived differently according to the process we use also for understanding him. So, and then who is Bhagavan? Okay. The topmost understanding of the absolute truth. So one explanation to the word Bhagavan, apart, we always hear about he's full of 6 opulences. So Pa means he's the nourisher, the maintainer, the establisher of the devotee. Bharta, he maintains. Nga, from Gamayita, he creates all qualities in his devotee, and he grants prema to his devotee, and who gives Vaikuntha to his devotee. And then we have Vat, stands for Vas, to reside. All devotees resides within him, and he resides in all his devotees. So that's another way to understand Bhagavan. Another meaning is that, like, as we know, full wealth, Aishvaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yasasa Suya Jnana Vairagya Yos Chaiva Sannam Bhaga Itingana. Full wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. These are the 6 opulences of the Supreme Lord. Okay. Now, how to realize the absolute truth? These are all beautiful verses, by the way. Text 12. Tashadadana muna yogyana bharatyamuk yuktaya pasyantyatmat atmani chatmanam bhakti sruta grihitaya. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes the absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. Okay, so here is the answer. And Prabhupada, this is a very famous, very nice quote. Okay, we're gonna jump that one and go to the next one. This is the one I was thinking. Okay, anyone would like to read? And Shama Bhakti, can you read?
Yes, Prabhu. So therefore here it is particularly said Bhaktaya. Bhaktaya means you have to execute the devotion service under the direction of a proper spiritual master. Bhaktaya Shrutya Grahitaya, and you have to hear about Krishna. 2 things must go on. If just like here you will find the Archa Vigraha, worshipping the deity is going on, but if simply these things go on, it will be happening. Because none of us are expert, there must be Shruta Grahitaya. We must hear about Krishna also. 2 things must go on parallel lines.
So this is a very important verse, a very important quote, because sometimes we have devotees that they don't like studying or teaching or learning, studying the philosophy, and they are very much focused on service, and they even think that, I'm saying this because that was the case when I joined the movement. To open the books to read, it was almost like Maya, because there were so many other things to do. and that, you know, at the end of the day, if you serve Krishna, he will reveal everything from the heart. Just surrender to him. If you read the books are going to tell you to surrender. So you just surrender, don't have to read the books. That was more or less the philosophy, you know. But here in this verse is saying that, you know, they're both things are going on simultaneously, like parallel lines, like in a train line. We render service in terms of what we heard from the Vedanta Shruti. Bhakti Shruti Grihitaya. So it is never to be, you know, emphasized enough the importance of reading and studying Srila Prabhupada's books for our execution of devotional service, so that our devotional service doesn't become, we don't deviate from the path. Shruti Smriti Puranadi, that devotional service has to be performed in line with the teachings of the scriptures. Otherwise, it becomes a disturbance to society. And unless we are actually investing time in learning the philosophy, is, you know, it's a deep science. It's not that, you know, you can read the book even once. I remember one time when they were saying, well, I already read Caitanya-caritamrta, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad. I read it once, you know, so that's it, you know. I don't need to read it again, but, you know, we need to study, we need to understand it. So that, you know, our devotional service doesn't become deviated. So bhaktiya in this case, it refers to the Pancharatrika Vidhi, and Shruta to the Bhagavad Vidhi. So in other words, there is the aspect of the service, worshiping the deity, engaging in the practical devotional service, and Bhagavad Vidhi refers more about hearing and chanting and engaging in, you know, hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, basically. So that is how we realize the absolute truth. The seriously inquisitive student realizes the absolute truth by rendering service in terms of what we have heard from the Vedanta Sutra. Okay, so we're going to finish here. I'm just curious. I follow. Yesterday we finished before 5 o'clock, right? I kind of. What time did we finish yesterday?
5:30.
5:30.
Yeah.
So my apologies to
No
all
problem.
of you, because I thought we started at 2:30. And I completely lost track of things. So
No problem. Absolutely no problem.
that's why you must have been like cursing me, I think.
No, not at all.
Well, I don't know.
We were blessed.
I just kind of really lost.
I was like, oh my Krishna, what's going on?
What's going on?
That's right. It was not too bad. I thought
you should have told me. You should have told me. No problem. I really I got confused, and today I was gonna make the same mistake. Because somehow starting at 2 o'clock doesn't kind of compute in my brain. I thought it was 2:30, you know? And then I was thinking, and to this day, I didn't know, did I finish before? Or, you know, after? I was confused. So my apologies to all of you. It was a 3.5 hour class. That's a killer. Oh my God. So,
and that to middle at 1 o'clock at night too. So I was like thinking, what's going on?
So okay, sorry about that. It won't happen again. And you know, I mean, I was, you know, when I was told 3 hours every day, I thought 1.5 hours is enough. But somehow we're taking time. So okay, so we finish here. I'll try to finish. I mean, I don't know, because we're still for next week. We have, you know, the rest of this second chapter now. The verses that come is very, very nectarian, very ecstatic. How the process of bhakti works. We're starting with this verse 12, and we're moving. The next 10 verses are really, really nice. And then, you know, the next section, chapter 3, and that we're going to move pretty fast, because we hear about the incarnations and that it will move faster. So anyway, we'll finish next week the unit. And then you have your break for 1 weekend for the test, like that. Okay, so I already given to Aniruddha Prabhu the open book assessment, and I have already given him the outlines for the presentation, the PowerPoints that I have. So if he can send them to you, you can use that as a reference. And thank you very much. I'm really sorry about yesterday, you know, and the thing is that yesterday I also had things to do myself. And I really wanted to finish on time. And somehow, because I had a call at 5:30, and the lady said to me, she said, well, are we having the call? I said, well, I just finished the class. And I remember, I thought I've given myself a gap of half an hour between the class and this call, you know. And anyway, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Dandavat pranam.
Thank
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Srila
Krishna.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Vansakalpa tarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha.